All right, today we're doing something a little different. We're going to crack open the history books to find a blueprint for modern wealth. And believe it or not, it's hidden in the ruins of ancient Rome. It's a story about a total economic collapse, a mysterious fortune, and a secret code that is, amazingly, just as relevant now as it was 2,000 years ago.
So let's just jump right into this massive paradox. You've got the Roman Empire, the superpower of its day, and its economy is literally falling apart. So how in the middle of all that chaos did some people, like the famous Stoic philosopher Seneca, become not just rich, but fantastically wealthy? I mean, that sounds completely impossible, right?
And that's what we're calling Rome's wealth paradox. We really need to set the stage here, because we're talking about an empire that was, for all intents and purposes, the center of the world. And yet it was facing this complete and total economic ruin, not from an outside enemy, but from the inside out.
And this is where it gets really crazy. You've got this stark contrast. On one side, you have the entire Roman middle class just being wiped out by hyperinflation. You know, their life savings, their businesses, all of it turning to dust. And then on the other side, you have Seneca, a philosopher who literally preached about simplicity, becoming one of the richest men in the entire empire. So what's the deal? How does that even happen?
Well, to understand how Seneca pulled it off, we first have to investigate the scene of the crime. So let's put on our detective hats for a minute and uncover what I'm calling the Great Silver Deception. This was the single act that broke an entire empire's economy.
And the victim, in this case, was the denarius. Now, this wasn't just any coin, it was the silver coin of the Roman Empire, and it started out as almost 100% pure silver. You can think of it like the US dollar of its time. It was the absolute backbone of their economy, and it was trusted by everyone.
And here's how they killed it. See, it wasn't a sudden shock. It was more like a slow, creeping poison. This timeline shows you how it happened. It starts small, back in 64 AD with Emperor Nero. He just shaves off about 10% of the silver to pay his debts. But once that line was crossed, well, there was no going back. A century later, it's down to 70%. By 241 AD, it's less than half silver. And then look at that last date. By 260 AD, the denarius was a ghost of its former self, with only 5% silver left in it. Just look at the visual here. The sheer scale of this collapse is just mind-blowing. In just a couple of centuries, the real value of Roman money, the actual silver you could hold in your hand, went from nearly pure to, well, basically nothing. It's an incredible example of how a government can systematically destroy value.
And here's the crucial point. This wasn't just some abstract accounting trick. No, this act of currency debasement unleashed devastating hyperinflation all across the empire. And what that did was, it systematically destroyed the savings of anyone who trusted their money. It essentially wiped out the Roman middle class.
So, okay, that's a fascinating and pretty tragic history lesson. But this is where the story gets really personal for all of us, because this ancient crisis, it has a shockingly relevant modern parallel.
Look at this comparison. On the left, you've got the Roman Empire. To cover its debts, it debased its currency by secretly taking the silver out of the coins. Now look at the right. Modern economies. To cover their debts, they can print more money, which increases the supply and, you guessed it, dilutes the value of every single dollar, pound, or euro that's already out there. The technology's different, sure, but the fundamental action? It's identical.
And that, of course, brings us to the really big question, the one that all this historical evidence forces us to ask ourselves today. Are we repeating the exact same economic mistakes of ancient Rome?
Okay, with that pretty heavy modern thought in our minds, let's get back to our original mystery. How did Seneca not just survive this economic meltdown, but actually thrive in it? The answer is, he played a completely different game. Let's uncover the Stoic secret hedge. His secret weapon was a strategy that we now call barbell investing. And it's a really fascinating idea because it's all about avoiding the middle ground. I want you to picture an actual barbell. On one side, you have these huge, heavy, super safe weights. That's the majority of your money. Then, way over on the other side, you have a much smaller, lighter weight, but one that has explosive potential. These are your high-risk, high-reward bets. It's a strategy of radical extremes.
So here's how he actually did it. Step one was his foundation. The vast majority of his wealth, maybe 90% of it, was invested in extremely safe, real assets. Things like productive farmland. Stuff that couldn't be inflated away by the government. Then you have step two, the high-risk bets. With that remaining small piece, he'd go for speculative ventures, like lending money for risky trade expeditions. Now, if those failed, he was totally fine. He'd only lost a small chunk. But if they succeeded, the returns were absolutely astronomical.
But you have to understand, this wasn't just some clever financial trick for Seneca. It was deeply, deeply rooted in his Stoic philosophy. He himself wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." His whole financial strategy was built to protect him from ruin, not to greedily chase every last coin.
And that right there leads us to the other half of the secret, the Stoic mindset. The core idea is simple. You don't panic when markets crash. You actually expect them to crash. You prepare for it. And you never ever let fear or greed drive your decisions. You focus only on what you can actually control, your strategy and your own reactions. That's it.
So, okay, we've looked at the financial crime scene, we've seen the eerie modern parallel, and we've uncovered Seneca's secret strategy. So what does all this mean for us? Right here, right now. Let's take everything we've learned and apply the Roman code, turning this ancient wisdom into a modern playbook.
Here are the core lessons, and they are just as powerful today. First, true wealth isn't about hoarding stacks of cash. We saw what happened to the denarius. Cash can lose its value. Instead, true wealth is about owning productive assets, things like real estate, a business you build, maybe even a diversified stock portfolio. And just as importantly, your mindset is every bit as critical as what's in your portfolio. The whole goal is to prepare for economic storms with a clear plan, instead of just reacting to them in a panic when they hit. That, right there, is the essence of the Roman code.
So, when you look at it all, it really seems that history has handed us the playbook for how to navigate financial uncertainty. It was written for us in the ruins of the world's greatest empire. The only question left is, are we going to read it?